So just so people, I talked about forgiveness for a reason. Because you have to forgive Venerable Tarpa and Ike for breaking the silence. Because we have to talk sometimes to the contractor, like we just were for those of you who heard us outside. Talking about, do we move the wall here? Do we put the planter there? Where's the parking space? You know, if anybody's eager to talk, we're happy to change places for you. Wouldn't it be nice?
Construction management.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might have a different building at the end.
Okay, were there any points in your discussion that you would like to follow up on at all? Nothing? You had something? Okay. I thought maybe that question about, there was one about give yourself an assignment within the next 4 weeks to talk to somebody who you usually wouldn't talk to. How did you feel about doing that?
Apparently there's a lot of people that are afraid to talk to you.
Oh, that's real comforting. What about if I were afraid to talk to all of you? Then what? But how did you feel about, giving yourself that assignment to talk to somebody that you wouldn't normally talk to, or, somebody where your mind's made up a lot of stories?
I feel like I am getting back some kind of power over myself, kind of. Actually, freedom. Yeah.
Yes.
I was so attached of my conceptions of this group of persons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you make yourself do that, you feel like you're getting some power over your own mind and your own life instead of being intimidated, and that you also have some freedom now. Because whenever we make hard and fast conceptions of people, we're not only imprisoning them, we're imprisoning ourselves, aren't we? And telling ourselves every time we come in contact with this person, this is how we have to feel. So that's not a very happy sight, is it? Yeah, so it's very good. Getting some freedom, the power. Mm-hmm.
I realize I avoid people where I'm going to feel shy and awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what that's about, but it's
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know what to say to that person.
Sopa, shy and awkward.
I know, isn't that odd?
Yeah.
It's not what I usually am, but
Yeah.
certain people
Mm-hmm.
that I noticed I have that feeling, so I just stay away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Strange.
Yeah. It's quite strange when we think about it, because we could actually be missing out on a very nice relationship. I mean, sometimes we feel intimidated because we've projected onto that person, they have so many fantastic qualities, or they're so big, or, like that I can't talk to them. I'm going to look like an idiot. So we make up stories and feel very shy, but nothing in that is true. Okay. Yeah.
I'm making a plan to talk to my mother, who was next to me,
Mm-hmm.
in a more receptive way, because I feel very stressed and anxious that we get in a fight. So
Mm.
I'm hoping that I can drop all of the stories and everything that comes with talking to her.
Yeah.
Try to approach it as, what would make you what do you think happiness is, and how can we get there for you?
Yeah. That's very nice. Yeah. What do you think it is? How can we help you? What's also helpful is, in your mind, think she's somebody else's mother. Don't think this is my mother.
Okay.
Think this is,
That would be easier.
Yeah. It's much easier. You just think this is somebody, this is an older woman who's living alone, who's the mother of somebody else, and I want to communicate with her and see what she needs. Yeah, and if you do that, it really becomes so much easier because you don't import that whole backpack of preconceptions with you. Yeah. Yeah. Now you can see, there's some things we can see here. One is just how our own mind, through its wrong conceptions, creates problems in relationships that don't have to be there. Yeah, I hope this is one point that you're beginning to see clearly here. Yeah. And another point, why are we talking about this? It's not only to improve relationships in this lifetime, but it's by improving relationships in this lifetime, you create less negative karma with those people. So then you have less to purify, you have less regret. Yeah, you can create more good karma, which benefits your future life and helps you go towards liberation and full awakening. So just by, getting rid of some of these obstacles in present situations, it's not just for the happiness of this life, it's for the effect that it has on your actions and thus on the karmic imprints that you put on your own mind. Yeah. And then it's also, another reason for doing this is if we want to be bodhisattvas, a bodhisattva is someone who cherishes others more than self and wants to become a fully awakened Buddha in order to be most capable of benefiting others. If we have a lot of negative conceptions about an individual or a group of people, how are we going to be a bodhisattva? Yeah, because bodhisattvas have an open heart towards everybody equally. So any of our prejudice or bias or this kind of fear or whatever it is, this is blocking our development of bodhicitta. And so it's blocking our path to full awakening. So sometimes, if you see it in that light, it helps you have a different perspective and maybe some more determination to work with it, instead of just saying, well, I don't know why, but that's the way I am, and leave it at that. Yeah. Yeah, because if you really, inside have respect and admiration for bodhisattvas, and you want to be one, then this is the kind of thing that we have to overcome. Yeah? A bodhisattva doesn't say, oh, I want to liberate all sentient beings except those ones over there. Because I don't really want to talk to them. I have impartial love and compassion for everybody else, but those ones, I just don't feel comfortable around, It's like, can you call some other Buddha to help them? Yeah? Do you think that, now how would you feel if Chenrezig looked at you and said that? Lots of times when we have these kind of biases and prejudices, we are only looking at them through our own perspective. But, how would you feel if Chenrezig looked at you and said, oh, I don't like people with that color hair. They just kind of give me the creeps. So, somebody else has to liberate that person and teach them the Dharma, because I just don't want to go near them. Yeah? We laugh at this, but it's just as silly as our prejudice against people that we believe and that we follow and that we are hesitant to shake up. Yeah, it's exactly as silly. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of get our mind to move sometimes. Mm-hmm.
So this morning we were talking about when society stigmatizes a particular group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one student I had who was notorious in the school for being a bully. And one day he said to me, "Do you think I like it when everybody looks at me like that?" He said, "Everybody looks at me like I'm bad, and I have no room to be otherwise, and I don't know how."
Mm-hmm.
And it was so, like, okay.
Yeah.
It struck me when he said that.
Yeah, isn't it? You know, all the other kids with their conception, you know, say, "Oh, you're like that," and then he fulfills that role even though he doesn't want to. Yeah. It's a good story to tell. Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're a teacher in a classroom, to say, you know, I had a student who did this, and you might have some kids begin to think that, oh, hey, you know, maybe I don't have to be like that. What did you say to him?
Well, we had a good relationship already. So I was just listening, and I was just, it was at a time where he was very close to getting expelled. So I was just sitting there saying, you know, look, why have you done this again? You know you're going to get expelled. But he said, I don't feel I have any choice. I don't know what to do. All the difficult students I work with would say that. I would say, you know, I think it's possible for you to express yourself without scaring everybody. They would look at me and say, how?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, maybe I didn't have the tools to. I would just look at them like, what do you mean how? Don't shout?
yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting when we hear things like this, because there are some skills that we take for granted that other people have never learned. Yeah? Like, you know, how can he say what he needs without frightening people? He never learned that. Nobody ever taught him. We find that, you know, here at the Abbey, that you know, some of us just have assumptions that people come here with certain skills. For example, we've had the experience of asking somebody to sweep the kitchen floor, and they don't know how to sweep. Yeah, they've never learned how to sweep the floor. So we have to teach them how to sweep the floor. Or people whose bedrooms are a mess, they never learned how to make their bed. And these are the kinds of things that, like, for some of us, it's like, wait a minute, how can that be? How can somebody not know how to make a bed or sweep a floor? But, you know, depending on how somebody grew up and what was going on in the home, people may or may not have learned even simple skills like that, let alone skills like how to communicate what you need without screaming. Yeah? I mean, some kids grew up in homes where screaming is normal. And that's how you talk. So you scream. Yeah? My dad used to say that about my mom's side of the family. He might have been right. Yeah? But seriously, you know, some families, that's what normality is. Yeah? And so people grow up, they've never learned another way. So sometimes we should let go of our assumptions of what we think people know by the time they're adults. Hmm? Yeah.
I was just thinking when you were asking about, talking to different people. So I was thinking about something I kind of brought up in the group about when there's people who are in like positions of power over you and your livelihood and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this person said she wanted to go out to lunch. You know, why don't you send the, you know, and I got very suspicious, like why? You know, and so my direct supervisor said, well, she's just new here and wants to get to know people. But I still had this kind of suspicious feeling, like she might use some, I don't feel quite as strong, but she might use something that I say against me. And so I was I kind of said, okay, maybe I'll make a plan to go out to lunch with her after all, but I'm still a little wary about that.
Mm. Okay, so when there's people in positions of power, like the boss of your boss, I guess, who's inviting you out to lunch, and like the boss of your boss doesn't usually do that. So like, well, why is this person doing that? That's like when Obama, after he got elected and he invited the Republicans to come to the White House. They're all going, oh, what's this guy doing, Yeah, it's very interesting how we impute things. Just because something's unusual, we impute a lot of suspicion. Yeah? And so your suspicion is, you might say something, it'll get twisted and used against you. But it might be that, wow, what an incredible thing that they asked you out to lunch and you actually get to know them and talk to them, which means that when, you have ideas or difficulties, you know that person and they know you and you can go directly and speak to them.
My thinking was more like, I don't have anything to say. So
Yeah.
actually, what you just said, that actually makes sense. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. That's why I said it. Yeah. Yeah. But it's so interesting, isn't it, the kind of preconceptions. It's like when she said people are afraid to talk to me. It's like, I hear that and it's like, what in the world? It's like, who do they think I am anyway? Yeah. I don't know. And it's like people take you and they create you in an image that is something completely coming from their own mind and has nothing to do with you. Yeah? And it not only makes it difficult for you to act, but it makes them difficult for them to act too. Because they're relating to somebody who doesn't exist there, but who they've projected there. And then they fight with you, they argue with you, oh, it's somebody in a position of authority, therefore I have to quarrel with them. Therefore I have to rebel against them. It's like we don't give ourselves any space. Or therefore I have to be shy in front of them. Therefore I have to be self-conscious and feel stupid in front of them. All of this completely coming from our own mind. Yeah? So one of the points here is, don't think that what your experience is an external objective reality. Yeah, and be aware of how your mind creates things, and thereby, puts you in a lot of difficult positions. Hmm? Mm-hmm.
It just reminds me of when I was teaching, and I taught in tough schools.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of times parents would show up, I would be hoping they wouldn't. And these would be the scary-looking parents. And so I'd see them coming down on one, and I'd think, okay, well, I could run for it. You can just think I'm another parent or something. Or a kid, with wrinkles. But every time, when we sort of got over the first 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
they would start telling me about their life. Mm-hmm. They were afraid of me. And then we would share, how we were afraid of each other. And then the conversation would continue at a level of some trust.
Yeah.
And I was always appalled at how I looked at people and made assumptions just based on how they
looked, without realizing that they were afraid of you. Yeah? Yeah? How often do we think that other people are afraid of us? Sometimes we try and make people afraid of us, but very often, it never registered with us that somebody might feel shy or timid or afraid. Hmm? Yeah. Like you go into a prison setting and, like somebody was saying, oh, I'm going to prison. Did you ever think that maybe the people in the prison are afraid of you? That maybe they see you as some kind of authority figure who's ready to judge them or ready to criticize them or trying to convert them or make them, judge them and make them be something that they aren't? Yeah? Does it ever enter your mind that maybe they have those kind of concerns? Okay. Okay, so these are the kinds of things we have to be on the lookout for if we're going to become bodhisattvas. Okay? Because we have to really deal with the way our mind constructs walls between ourselves and others. Now, and we construct a lot of different walls. Now, and most of the walls are based on, there's me over here, and I've got to protect myself. And there's the other over there who maybe can give me some pleasure, but maybe harm me. So how can I work the situation so they give me pleasure and they don't harm me? Whereas a bodhisattva, that's how ordinary people would look. Bodhisattva looks and says, oh, there's somebody who wants to be happy and not suffer. I wonder what I can do for them. Incredible, isn't it? Just the very way that a bodhisattva approaches a sentient being. How different that is from the way an ordinary being approaches somebody else. Yeah. And so to really look inside and see, to what extent do we have the bodhisattva way? To what extent are we just doing it in an ordinary way? There's somebody there. What can they do for me? Are they going to hurt me? Are they going to harm me? How can I talk them into doing something good for me? How can I reroute them so they don't harm me? Yeah? And then just relating to people that way. How are we gonna have close relationships and feel really comfortable and genuinely love people if that's the automatic MO we have of relating to others? And so here's where we really have to, work on our mind and change that automatic way to one of, there's another sentient being who wants to be happy, a sentient being who's been kind to me. So it's very good to do this kind of meditation in public places where you're with strangers, instead of sitting and kind of judging everybody who walks by according to how they look and how they walk and what they're wearing and these kinds of things. To just practice saying, no matter who it is, there's a sentient being who wants to be happy and not suffer. Well, and there's another one of them, and there's another one of them. Yeah, I do this in airports a lot. Yeah.
You should have the mantra, may you be happy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so really, practicing in that kind of way. Yeah.
I had some good advice last fall, because right when the question came up about talking to people, the first thing I was thinking of is I just need to shut up, because I talk too much. And one of the things I started doing, going through airports, traveling, going to coffee shops, pizza parlors, restaurants, all over town, is just asking people, how's your day going? And man, that's unbelievable when you actually do that. Because they'll tell you how their day is going. And then they're going to remember you the next time. And you build this whole network of people that you can interact with. And it's a lot more effective than, trying to talk about yourself. That just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So, but how was your day? And then actually listen to what they have to say. And that's been an incredible exercise for the last about 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we meet many, many strangers, don't we? or people just who are acquaintances, and to make that opening statement, and then, as you said, to listen to what the response is. Not to make the opening statement and then tell them how our day has been going. Okay. Yeah. But you can see that when we take an interest in people like that, that they do respond. Yeah. People do want to connect.
Sorry, I remembered the happy ending to the student story.
Oh.
So I remember what I told him was he had really good leadership qualities, just that he was leading a gang.
Yeah.
He should redirect those leadership
Yeah.
qualities. And the amazing thing is that, I mean, I left the school, but the next year he failed and he repeated the year, but he became like the nicest, most well-behaved person.
Ah.
Really good with the class.
Mhm.
And recently he was involved in a very serious motorcycle accident. He survived.
Mm.
But like half the school showed up at the hospital.
Mm.
So I was just thinking that, he wasn't that scary to that many people.
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah. But that might have really given him an idea of who else he could be. Say, you have good leadership qualities. Lead this way instead of lead that way. Because if you look, drug dealers have very good business sense, usually. Yeah, very good business sense. They're just using it for the wrong thing. Yeah, and same with gang leaders, very good leadership skills, but using it for the wrong thing. So if we can take some of those talents of people and recognize their talents and shift them, Yeah, I was writing to one guy who made, I don't know, millions selling drugs until he got busted. Yeah, I mean, very good business sense. But just completely used it in the wrong way. Hmm? Mm-hmm.
I just want to appreciate John's suggestion, because my response to this was like, the first thing I thought of was being on a plane. And
Mhm.
I don't necessarily want to commit to talking to everybody I sit
Yeah.
on the airplane.
Yeah, that's
So there's some wisdom
fine.
in that, but also there's
Mhm.
some resistance. But
Mhm.
part of that resistance is not knowing, especially in that kind of situation where you're about to be in relationship with someone for many, many, many hours. You have no idea what's going to happen if you turn to them, open to them. But this question, how's your day going, immediately changes the garbage topics that so often come out when we start conversations with complete strangers on an airplane.
Mhm.
Oh, I see you're reading People magazine. What's happening with blah, blah, blah. So I think this is really beautiful. I just wanted to appreciate that.
Yeah.
As a way
Yeah.
to get into the heart of somebody.
Okay, so it's not it's not chit-chat, but it's really showing interest in that individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when we are cultivating the quality of love, and love means the wish for someone to have happiness and its causes. Yeah, compassion is the wish for them to be free of suffering and its causes. So we want to develop that internal wish, and then we need also to learn how to act out of that wish. And those are two different things, because we have to develop the internal quality before we can really act out of it. Otherwise, without really cultivating love, we may do a lot of nice things, but our motivation may be to get people to like us. Yeah, which is not the motivation we really want to have. Okay? So we want to work on the inner level of generating actual love and actual compassion, as well as learn skills of how to actually better communicate with people when we have those kinds of really good motivations. There's lots of good programs, giving us techniques and suggestions on how to communicate with people. Yeah, lots of programs like that, but not so many that are asking us to really check what our motivation and our mental state is. Yeah, but I think we need both of them, because you can be somebody who has love and compassion, but also maybe you never learned the skill of how to talk to people in an open, relaxed way. Just what we were saying here. Yeah? Or maybe you never learned how to be assertive in a polite way. Or maybe, there's lots of actual skills of communication that can be very helpful to learn. Reflective listening, nonviolent communication, lots of different things like that. So those are very helpful to learn. But what we also have to do is behind them have the correct motivation. Yeah, because otherwise it's just a technique that sooner or later our ego sabotages to make it for our own purpose, and that's when it becomes kind of manipulation, even though we don't really want to call it that. Whereas, if we're really thinking about, how can I wish them to have happiness and its causes? What does that feel like? What does that look like? Yeah, and then trying to cultivate that feeling. When we do the meditation on loving kindness or on love, in the Theravada tradition, they ask us to begin with thinking about somebody who we respect, but not somebody that we're attached to. Okay? So somebody that we respect, where of course we wish that person well, but not a close friend, a relative, or a lover where there's going to be some attachment or a lot of attachment in there. So to begin in that way. And then some people also say to start with ourselves and feeling love for ourselves or compassion for ourselves, and then extending it to others. And this can be actually quite difficult for some people. Some people never learned how to love themselves or have compassion for themselves. And they, like we were talking, I don't know if I was talking here or somebody else, that we often feel that to be truly compassionate, we have to be suffering. Yeah, that if we're at all happy, it can't be true compassion. Yeah. If we're feeling happy, it can't be true love. Yeah. We've got to be sacrificing ourselves. We've got to be suffering in order to prove that there's absolutely no self-interest. So some people really feel that way. Yeah, and that can be a big problem. I think a lot of that comes from Christian upbringing, because you're taught Jesus died for your sins, so there's this image of somebody who is suffering horribly, and yet that's told to be the image of somebody who loves you the most. So then we think, okay, if I'm going to love somebody, I also have to be suffering horribly in order to have real love or real compassion. Buddhism does not have that belief at all. Yeah, not at all. From a Buddhist sense of it, we should feel delighted wishing others to have happiness and wishing them to be free of suffering. The actual reward is the delight we take in having love and compassion. So there should be happiness in our mind. There shouldn't be suffering and misery and depression and feeling forlorn. Yeah, there should be really great joy in our mind in opening our hearts to others in that way. So that's a very important point to remember, because so often people get stuck in this Western Christian perspective. Yeah. Another perspective that I find people get stuck in that impedes love, showing love and compassion towards ourselves, which again impedes showing it towards others, is feeling I'm not worthy. Yeah. I'm not worthy of love and compassion. And I wonder too sometimes if that comes from a Christian viewpoint of, you're a sinner. There's Jesus who died for you, and yet you're a sinner. How can you be worthy of Jesus' love and compassion? I don't know if psychologically that works with people. What do you think? Do you think some of you grew up with that kind of feeling? Like, how can I be worthy of what Jesus has done for me? Because I stole my brother's bubble gum? And I don't really want to go and confess? Yeah,
I think within the Christian perspective, from my understanding when I grew up in that, there's a lot of guilt there. Tremendous amount of guilt that can be brought upon through that scenario because of the sin, and he died on the cross for your sins, and you put him there. You're the one who put him on that cross by your sins, and there's no way for you to atone for that but just follow it. And it really puts a lot on a person, the guilt, and it's not helpful. It's very, very harmful.
Yeah.
Instead of the regret that you can move with, it puts a lot of guilt in there.
Yeah.
At least it was. Growing up as a kid, I always feel like, well, this is totally, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to live up to this.
Right. I didn't even ask him to die for me. I would never ask somebody to die for me. And yet he did, and it was my sin that made him die. I mean, as a child, when you learn this, you're getting 6-year-old Christian philosophy, but as a kid, and it goes in, in very distorted ways.
In my family, if you were happy, you were being selfish.
If you were happy, you were being selfish.
I don't know how that worked, but it just did.
Yeah. You should be running around doing something to make everybody happy. And if you're happy, it means you're being lazy, or you're taking the happiness away from somebody else. You're enjoying something else that you should have shared with somebody else so that they could have been happy. Yeah.
That ended up turning me completely away from spiritual practice. I felt as a little boy, I was like, man, I got some spirituality. I'm feeling it. And then I felt pretty cool, with Jesus and everything. And then I started learning more stuff, and I'm like, no, this is wrong. This just doesn't compart with my logic and common sense. And then you and Robina came to town. It all changed. I'm not joking. I mean, it was very instantaneous. I was like, oh yeah. And I think that's probably a very common experience happening in the West.
Yeah. But I think very often we have this process of undoing things we learned as a child. Sometimes we were like you and said, no, this isn't right. I really can't believe it. But sometimes it went in anyway. And at another level, even though we don't want to, we believe that. Because we were little when it was taught to us. We didn't have any discriminating wisdom. Yeah. And so sometimes we don't even believe that, we aren't even aware that we have that kind of assumption or belief buried somewhere in our psyche. Yeah. All we know is that we keep hitting blocks. Yeah. And so I think it's very helpful for us to really spend some time, not in a critical, blaming way. That's not helpful. But really looking at what we were taught as children, either about religion, about how people behave, about how people are supposed to relate to each other, to look at all that conditioning we had as little kids that we weren't even aware of. and to see how that has influenced the way we think now as adults in ways that we often aren't even aware of. Yeah? And this can be such an incredible thing when we start to look at this and start to dismantle it. Because now we're adults, we can use our reasoning. We can condition ourselves in a different way. We can see what makes sense and what doesn't, what is true and what isn't. Yeah? Sometimes we need to really work very hard on some of these things to recondition ourselves in another way. Yeah? But it's a tremendous opening, yeah, that we can take advantage of to clear out all sorts of things that not only make problems in our life, but become spiritual obstacles for generating bodhicitta. Okay? So this is one reason I think that the discussion groups we have can be very helpful, because you listen to what other people say, and then you go, oh, I never thought of that, but yeah, I was taught that. Or I learned that, whatever it was. You had?
Well, it was just that not just do we get it, but we're also given this by people who love us.
Yes.
And so there's that other level of they are doing their best to give us the tools that will make our life rich and meaningful and worthwhile. And so it has this other layer of, at least for me, how these things went in, because they're people I trusted, and I knew they were teaching me this because they loved me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the people you trusted, they're teaching this to me because they love me, so it must be true that I am a sinner.
And if I don't buy it, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. And if I don't buy it, there's something wrong with me. Or I'm ungrateful, I'm selfish, I'm defective.
And there's that other level of things we learn in childhood, things that are never spoken. You just learn them by osmosis.
Yes.
Because they're never spoken. They're not in your mind in words. They're just their behavior that comes out sometimes and think, how did this happen?
Right.
It's kind of like something you learn. I used to see it at work with all the people that wouldn't pay their water bill, and then it would be turned off, and then they'd bring their children with them as they come in to make excuses and make a deal, and like they're teaching the children, this is how you handle your water bill.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, these kids are going to grow up thinking that the only way to handle a water bill is to ignore it until somebody turns the water off, and then you go into City Hall and play Let's Make a Deal, and they will never question that. But I know that there's things in my family that we learned by osmosis.
Right.
And just this unthinkingly propagating.
Yep.
Stuff.
Yep. It's very true, isn't it?
For me, there's a comfort level. I grew up very, I guess you'd say, fundamentalist Christian family. My mother taught Sunday school. I went to church every Sunday. It's in my whole family. I grew up in a unique church out in Wheatfield and whatnot that my ancestors built. So there's a comfort level there for me, even though I know some of it is just plain doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
But there's a comfort level because it's what I grew up with, even if it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And trying to develop a new comfort level at this age is a process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there might very much be a comfort level with something that you know is unproductive or something that you know is not correct, but it's familiar. And when you learned it, as she said, from people who loved you, who were trying to do their best to help you, then, it's there. And then there's this feeling of, oh, I'm not loyal. Yeah, if I don't follow this, I'm not loyal. What kind of person am I?
Everybody in my family knows.
Pardon me?
Nobody in my family knows I'm Hindu.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Small step, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the name of the next retreat. Yeah. Buddhist Anonymous. Yeah. Yeah. We'll take all your cell phones so none of your relatives can call you. They won't know where you are. Yeah. 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 I mean, in a similar way, I grew up Jewish, not religious, but cultural. And I was taught an identity of you are defined by who hates you. You know, your identity is you're persecuted. And if it's not this group that's persecuting you, it's another group that's persecuting you. But you always kind of win, you know. Somebody said that's what Jewish holidays are. They tried to destroy us. We won, let's eat, you know. But this is very much I grew up with an identity of, you know, persecution. And this is what bonds you to other people, is that you're in a persecuted group. So you've got to trust those people in the group, because everybody else in the world, if it's not the Babylonians, it's Hitler, or it's the Palestinians, or it's the Spaniards in the Inquisition. But it's somebody who is going to persecute you. And you know, it was never, that identity was never taught to me in words. You know, nobody said you're going to have an identity of being persecuted. You know, kind of, it wasn't presented. But looking upon it, you know, now as an adult, it's like, well, that was the message that I got. Yeah. And I got to a certain point where, as a teenager and looking at my life, where I said, I refuse to have that identity. I will not accept that identity. That is not how I want to see the world. Yeah. But it's very interesting. It was very interesting for me going to Israel, because, you know, in the eyes of other people, I'm Jewish. And I mean, when I went to Israel the first time, well, not the first time, but as the first time as a Buddhist, somebody interviewed me for the newspaper, and they said, "Are you Jewish?" And I said the famous Sunday school question, what does it mean to be Jewish? And and somebody, not the interviewer, but somebody, the person whose house I was at, said, "Next time they persecute the Jews, are they going to come get you?" You know? I said, I don't know. And I don't want to view the world that way. Okay? But I mean, I'm just giving my own personal example of, you know, there's this certain familiarity when I'm in that kind of environment. Yeah. But I'm also very acutely aware of the things that I learned in it that are not correct, that I do not want to have. And yet, I feel like I can understand these people. You know, when I hear about, you know, kind of what Netanyahu is saying, the ridiculous things sometimes, I understand where he's coming from. Yeah. Because I understand that mentality. Yeah? I understand, you know, what it means to have the Holocaust alive and well in your life 60 years later, even though you weren't alive then. You know? So it can be useful. This kind of thing can be useful in understanding those people. But we also have to be quite clear in our own mind about what we believe and what we don't. Yeah, and be quite clear and quite fearless about it. Because otherwise we can so easily get hooked. When I was in Israel another time, I was there, teaching Buddhism. And there was one young woman who had been in an accident and was in a coma. And her friends were at my course, and they asked me to go there and say some mantra, do some kind of blessing. So I went there. She was from a family that was very religious. She had American relatives who had come there after she was in the accident. She was still in the coma when I went. But one of her American relatives was there. And he was really appalled that I was there. How can you be Jewish and be doing this blasphemous stuff? And he looked at me and he said, "You remember you are still Jewish. Come back." It's like, so I know where he's coming from. I'm not going there. Yeah, but there is definitely that kind of pressure, Depends upon who it is. My family doesn't care so much. They just think I'm weird. But, but you do meet other people who I understand now why there's this song on Passover, "Let my people go," because they don't let you go. They absolutely do not let you go. Yeah.
I just kind of went with something you were just saying in terms of being part of a group identity and how you expect it to behave. When you were talking earlier about low self-esteem, and you were the things that really comes to my mind all the time is that as a person of African descent in this country, there's the expectation that you're never going to be good enough. And so then there's all this pressure on you about you have to be twice as good to get, what is the word, half as far.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all of that leftover stuff, because I know I have a lot of that kind of trying harder, over-trying, perfectionist, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just also think, like you were saying, as we're dealing with all kinds of different kind of people, we need to know that all those things exist.
Yeah.
Be able to work with those.
Yeah. Yeah. But we need to know that maybe in some people's minds, they are going to persecute me, and they are going to say that you have to work twice as hard to get half as much, But we have to know that people may think like that, but we also have to not buy into it. And that's the challenge for us, is I am not going to buy into it and make an identity of that. Yeah? It's you are aware that it exists, but I'm not playing that game.
I think it gets you right back into the exact opposite of what we're trying to cultivate. In other words, if you get hooked into your whatever group it is, it's an us versus them mentality. And I'm of German descent, and I've got people that come in my office sometimes as Germans, and they try to play that, we're the master race BS kind of stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's 2010 or whatever. I don't understand that mentality, and I simply will not engage it. And the more I've traveled around, anywhere on the planet, people are all the same to me. And whether you're in South America or in Asia or in Europe, I think we are all 99.9% similar, and 0.1% of us is maybe a little bit different. That's it.
Yeah. And this is the exact feeling behind everybody wants happiness and nobody wants to suffer. And people may have different things that make them happy, and they may suffer from different things. But this wish for happiness and to avoid suffering, that's that actually 100% way in which we're the same. Yeah. Yeah. And to train our mind to see people in that way. Again and again and again, to train our mind to see people like that, to look beyond the superficial you know? To, like, when I relate to you, to not relate as, oh, there's somebody who grew up in an evangelical family and, you know, still has some feelings of attraction to them. Maybe she, you know, underneath feels, you know, and start extrapolating with my proliferating conceptions, you know, but throw that out the window, recognize on a conventional level that might be there, but I'm not going to relate to you through that. Yeah. So I think, you know, this kind of thing is very important to be a bodhisattva, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, equanimity is amazingly important. Yeah. And so also in the, you know, as we'll get further into equanimity when we talk about equalizing self and others, is to see, to cut out this difference between I and them, according to who's more important or who's more worthwhile. You know, and seeing everybody as equal in that way. And that means overcoming this feeling that we're poor quality, we're defective goods, we're not good enough, other people are better than us, we're not worthy of being loved. All this other kind of junk that many of us have inside from who knows what conditioning, or what we brought with us from previous lives. But we have to get rid of that too. Yeah, how can you be a bodhisattva and go around thinking, I'm poor quality, defective goods? You can be a bodhisattva and have that self-image. It doesn't work. His Holiness is always saying bodhisattvas have to have tremendous self-confidence. They have to have the feeling of, I can do this. You know, I can love everybody open-heartedly equally. I can realize the nature of reality. I can go to the lower realms for eons for the benefit of sentient beings. I can develop concentration. You know, we have to have incredibly strong self-confidence to practice the Bodhisattva path. Bodhisattva path is not for wimps. You know, it's really not. We say, oh, bodhisattvas are compassionate, and we think, oh, compassion means you're kind of wimpy. All you do is say yes to everybody. That's not a bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas have to think clean, clear. They have to have incredible discriminating wisdom. They have to know all the different trips people go on and help them dismantle them. And to do that, they have to know all their own trips and dismantle them. Yeah, you can be a bodhisattva saying, oh, you know, I was brought up in a family and nobody loved me. I'm not worthy of love, and, you know, I'm just kind of defective and I don't deserve anything. That self-image is going to destroy or prevent, impede your ability to bring forth your full spiritual potential. Because you're going to be locked in the prison of your own making. Mm-hmm. Like that little boy Tyrone I always tell people about when I was teaching 3rd grade. Somewhere along the line, somebody told Tyrone he couldn't learn to read because he was dumb. So he couldn't learn to read because he thought he was dumb. He was not dumb, but he could not learn to read because he thought he was dumb. So as long as we hold on to that image of ourself, we're not going to be able to access our full potential and use it. Yeah? So we have to go in there and dismantle all these wrong conceptions, even some of them that we've had, even from previous lives, let alone ones we were taught as kids this life, to identify them and dismantle them and realize that is not me. That is absolutely not me. I am not going to be limited by that preconception about myself. You had
Thinking about how do bodhisattvas relate to their afflictions?
How do bodhisattvas relate to their afflictions?
They just say just that. That is not me.
Yeah, they say that's not me. And, this affliction is impeding my happiness. This affliction is, going against everything I want to be. And so I'm not going to follow that affliction. I am simply not going to follow it. And they're very strong about it. And then they apply the antidote. Yeah. For people without that kind of courage, then an affliction comes and we just go, well, I had no choice. I just was so angry I couldn't control myself. And at that period of time, that's may have been true. But so often it's our own self-concepts that impede us.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of an illness particularly, I was thinking of, sometimes the scriptures have commented that illness is a broom that can sweep away. And I'm thinking of Terry particularly, who's dying, and many of us went in to see him.
Mm-hmm.
He, the nurses said, oh, his lungs are filled up. We walked in, we thought we were going to help him, and he helped us. He sat up. He said, I'm so glad to see you. I have so much to tell you. You need to know that the Dharma I've met in this life is enough. And I kind of went like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And he, he was dying, but he wanted to help us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This was a friend in Dharma Friendship Foundation who was dying of AIDS. He was dying in the middle of a retreat. I left the retreat to go be with him. But I heard when he was first diagnosed, his friends were flipping out, and he was the one who had to calm them down. Yeah, this was the kind of person he was. And completely took it in his stride. I mean, like the story you just told. Yeah. And so to think, maybe we can do that too. Yeah, if we're sick, maybe we can have that attitude towards our sickness and be somehow inspiring towards others without trying to be. If we have the idea, okay, I'm going to be inspiring to others, then, forget it. That doesn't work. But maybe through our own practice, yeah, we can come to a point where, if we're sick or we're dying or we're aging or whatever's going on, that just by being who we are, we become somebody tremendously beneficial to other people. Okay, where are we? Time to meditate. I will start talking about this. Yeah. Okay, so let's review. What did we talk about? We talked about love. Yeah. We talked about needing to be able to extend love to ourselves. Yeah. And not discriminating amongst ourselves and others when we're loving, and also between different people. Yeah, that if we're to develop full love, how important equanimity is. Yeah, we talked about our motivation and not just acting in a loving way or, learning techniques for how to communicate or whatever, but also checking the motivation and making sure that's in line with the behavior that we're trying to extend. Okay, we talked about dismantling all sorts of preconceptions. Okay, and the preconceptions may range from, I put Jesus on the cross, to, I feel comfortable in this church and need to go back, to, this is the way I solve my water bill problems. But really looking and seeing in our own hearts what kinds of things we learned and what we need to dismantle. Oh yeah, we talked about how we don't talk to people because of the stories we make in our mind. And so how we impede ourselves from communicating with other people. And then we talked about the thing of just asking somebody, how's your day going? And then listening to them. Actually listening with our hearts. Okay, what else?
How to use our mind when we're in public places.
Yeah, so using our minds in public places to really train ourselves to think this person wants happiness and wants to be free of suffering, just like me, just like everybody else. We talked about if you have problems with a relative or a particular person, thinking that it's somebody else's mother or somebody else's sister or whatever it is. Yeah, because that just all these ways to pull ourselves out of these preconceptions that we've developed and projected onto other people that limit how we relate to them. We talked about the little boy who said, I don't know how to, people expect me to be a Billy, I don't know how to be anything else. Yeah, and so how to, reach out to people like this.
What about the self-confidence of a bodhisattva?
Yeah, we talked about the confidence of the bodhisattva.
That love isn't about suffering.
Yes, and that we don't have to suffer in order to, be loving. And then Donnie, you were talking about, what was it? What did she say? It was a very good point that is gone from my mind right now. Yes. Free when she talked to somebody that she wouldn't normally talk to. Yeah.
Empowered.
Yeah, how that was empowering. Okay, so let's take 10 minutes and meditate.